Welcome to the best sports betting podcast, where we'll talk about reviews, previews, tips and all things betting related. Brought to you by bestsportsbetting.co.za. Now, on to our hosts.
Howzit Punters, welcome back to the Best Sports Betting Podcast. And in this episode, I am joined by Simon, and we're going to be taking a look at some cool betting options that are available on South African betting sites, as well as some bet builders and some more soccer betting. Simon, how have you been?
I've been well, Rob. I had a pretty relaxing weekend. How was yours?
Pretty good. We have a lockdown change to lockdown level 2, so we can buy dope and cigarettes again, which is great news after what's it like 5-6 months of being dry and not having smoked. So it's a good change for us. So hopefully that leads to some betting profits. You know, once you've had a bit of whiskey and a couple of smokes, you're bit more loose with your betting. So hopefully that's going to happen to me this weekend.
Yeah, well, I'm relieved for you, Rob. It's been a while, and gosh, with the back and forth with booze coming back and then being banned again, it's just an emotional roller coaster for everyone, I think.
It has, and especially for alcoholics like myself. But yeah, so going on to today's show, we're going to be having a look at well, before we get to the bet builders, let's have a quick chat about the Barcelona Bayern match, which took place last week, and Barca got their asses handed to them 8-2. I didn't watch the entire match. I did catch most of the highlights though, and it was quite a drubbing. You picked Bayern to win that one. I can't remember if there was a handicap involved, but you called that one quite nicely.
Yeah, so it was, wow, what a goal fest. I can't remember a Champions League tie where there were 10 goals. It ended 8-2 to Bayern. So yeah, they were a pretty short price against Barcelona, and I called that one. I thought that although there might have looked like there was a bit of value in Barcelona, I think that Bayern are a much stronger side. And geez, it was 4-1 by the 32nd minute of the first half. So it really was there were a lot of goals. I think often what happens in games like this is that the second half is much slower. You know,
yes, the result's been decided essentially.
Right, with one or both teams kind of trying to reconcile their defense, but not here. I mean, Bayern were scoring for fun, and nothing could stop them. I had, funny enough, even with 8 goals to Bayern by the end, Lewandowski could only contribute 1 goal, which I thought was just ironic.
I was looking at the goal scorers, and it was like everyone from Bayern decided to get on the team sheet, even Dani Alves.
That's right. Yeah, exactly, their own goals. So it was quite absurd. I thought that obviously being Europe's top goal scorer, he couldn't net 2 goals, which was my main pick for the match. But then I did also like the chances of Bayern to win and Lewandowski to score at least 1. So at least that came through at 15-10. But what an entertaining match! I mean, that was really a great advertisement for the Champions League.
But not a great advertisement for Barcelona, who've sacked their coach following that pretty bad result. I mean, do you sack your coach after that? Look, it's embarrassing, but I'm sure it's more to do with the poor season that they've had than just that result in isolation.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think this is a problem or an issue that I have with football in general, is that I just think that that coaches just get sacked far too easily. I mean, the thing is in football as well is I'm not going to say that Barca didn't deserve to lose that match. They certainly did, but I think there's a lot of variance involved, and some things do come down to chance. I mean, for instance, you start a season and you've lost your first 5 games. I mean, it obviously depends on who you've come up against. It's a long season. I just think that often coaches don't get enough of a chance to really kind of to settle in before they're getting judged.
And build their teams and get the players players that they've brought in working and all of those things. Yeah. So it is a difficult time to be a manager. But hey, I guess if I was sacked after that, I probably wouldn't have too many complaints, to be honest. But wow, sure. I as you said earlier, the first half basically what should I say? I'm looking for a fancy English word, but it mirrored the second half, and
yeah.
What I would have fallen into the trap, a certain trap I would have fallen into, was the betting on unders. Now, if I was betting on the game live and I'd seen a score of 5-1 or 4-1 at half time, I would have shipped a fair bit on under 7.5. To be fair, maybe even under 8.5 if they were offering, and I'm sure they would have been less than even money at that point. But I would have fallen into the trap where there would have been a lot of goals in the first half, and I'd be expecting less goals in the second half. So I just thought I'd share that. I would have had a losing bet if I'd got involved, and that's where I would have got involved.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, Rob, because I was actually thinking of mentioning the exact same thing. As I said earlier, often there is just a drought in the second half, or far less goals at least, when you have such a fiery start to the game. So that is certainly a trap I would have fallen into as well, and it really was just from start to finish an absolute goal fest.
Yeah, and it's something you see in rugby quite a bit as well. If a team goes ahead early by maybe like a 21 to 28 point lead, that match is essentially done for all intents and purposes, and that's where I'd start betting on the under. I'd bet on the team with the most points. I'd bet on their unders, and I'd probably bet on overs for the team that's getting smashed. But yeah, anyway, enough about the Champions League. Let's move on to some bet builders. Now, for guys who don't know what bet builders are, it's a function that allows you to basically bet on a single match with multiple different markets. So I can bet on, let's say, Ajax Cape Town to beat Morocco Swallows, plus over 1.5 goals, plus Ajax to have 8 or more corners, plus X to score, plus maybe Sundowns to concede a goal. There are lots of different options you can add to a bet builder, and lots of South African bookies now have these. Simon's just done a piece about some of the different South African bet builders that have all different names, by the way. And he's going to quickly tell us a little bit more about what he's discovered while he was doing some research.
Sure, yeah. So I think you summed it up quite nicely, Rob. We all, I think we often have more than one opinion about a match. Before I carry on, let me just say these bets are at the moment only available on soccer. So if you want to place a bet builder, you will need to place them on a soccer match. But lucky enough, in soccer there are just so many markets to bet on, and they are really fun to combine these kind of bets. So it is actually the perfect sport to have a bet builder bet. But yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly there. You basically can pick from a number of different markets and combine them, and then the bookmaker will immediately give you the combined odds for those bets. So obviously, instead of taking those bets in isolation, you would then take a bet which would combine both those results, which would obviously both need to happen, just like you would take if you're taking a multi-bet, because it is essentially an accumulator. So both results, or 3 or 4, or however many, up to 10, you would like to take within that builder bet, will need to all come off in order for you to win the bet. So
they limit you to 10 different markets on a single bet.
That's right. So you will need to pick between 2 and 10 markets in your builder bet. That's correct. And right now they're available and with all of the same rules essentially, available at Betway, at Sportingbet, and Hollywoodbets, all with a limit of 10 legs per builder bet.
Yeah, and I think Sunbet have also recently released their one. I'll have to confirm that though. But that brings, and I think SuperBets might have one, but honestly, I don't spend too much time on the SuperBets betting side because the site doesn't exactly gel well with me on how it works and stuff like that. But so these bet builders are great for getting extra value. So if you really like Manchester United to beat someone, you can sort of pack in a whole lot of extra value there, and you can bring up your odds and your ticket price. And what's great is that it's a fairly new feature that we've seen on the market. Simon and I, back in the day, we will be able to recall that you weren't ever able to bet on two things from the same match, or the same event rather, which if you want to be technical about it. You'd actually have to take separate bets, or hope that bet settles in play and then double up and that kind of thing. So it's a great tool for punters. It works great on mobile and on desktop. Obviously, most guys are going to be using it on mobile. And it's definitely something I recommend guys check out if they are going to be taking accumulators and those sort of things. What interesting markets did you come across? Were there any that you think could combine nicely? Maybe over 1.5, over 2.5 in the same bet. Because obviously, if one of those is going to win, the other one's if 2.5 is going to win, then 1.5 is obviously going to win. Is it something we can do on a bet builder?
Yes, you can. So maybe the first would be a good thing to explain would be that you obviously can't combine. This might seem a little intuitive, but you can't combine bets which can't actually result together. So, for instance, you couldn't take a bet on Bayern to score over 1.5 goals and then have under 1.5 total goals in the match, because if one happens, then the other can't happen. But in terms of bets to combine, I think that's a good call. If you expect a high scoring match, you might want to take over 1.5 in the first half and over 3.5 total. Or something along those lines. So it can be a good strategy to combine different bets. Where if you see a certain match kind of playing out in a certain way, you can take bets which kind of collate quite nicely and increase your chances of them coming off.
And I see on Sportingbet they actually have these sort of pre-packaged bets or builder bets that you can take advantage of with three. I think they all have three or four different markets markets in them. And I'm just looking at one now that has total goals over 2.5. It has total corners over 10.5 and total booking points over 39.5. And you're getting 4.4. I know the odds don't really reflect because you're not sure which teams I'm talking about, but that would be an example of a kind of pre-packaged bet from Sportingbet, where you'd literally just take that instead of having to manually build your own bet, which is something for those who are in a bit of a rush to get their bets on or don't want to spend too much time doing research. Are there any drawbacks to build a bet that you can think of?
I guess the obvious drawback is that when betting on any accumulators, obviously it's much harder to win a bet when you have more legs involved. So I think as much as it's really exciting to obviously build your own bets, and if you throw something like an anytime goal scorer or even a correct score at halftime bet, and then you're going to get massive odds. But of course, you are obviously you're taking quite a big risk at that point, throwing it in there. But I mean, that's part of the fun, right? But in terms of drawbacks, I can't really think of many, especially because you can combine almost any normal bet pre-match. That's another thing to just make clear. You can only take these pre-match, but you can combine almost any pre-match bet together. So I don't really see any drawbacks besides the fact that, of course, if you're going to take a bet at odds of sort of 300 to 1 or something, you obviously got to be prepared that bet does have a fairly slim chance of coming in.
Yeah, look, I mean, for me, what I'd like to see is this kind of stretched out to all sports or all major sports. Your NFL. That would be great there. Rugby, I think it would be quite a powerful tool to use. And also maybe more than 10 betting markets, although 10 is more than enough for most people. I think I'm just being pedantic here. But, you get these guys who like to build these long train accumulators and slap a $1 on it. And I don't think they're going to be interested in odds of anything less than 100 to 1 on those bets. So maybe that would be something for the future. Hopefully we can see a little more functionality built into it. I haven't actually tried it on an app, but go ahead, Simon.
I think diversifying it in terms of sport, that's actually something that I did mention in the article that will be posted fairly soon. I think I don't think it's necessarily possible to have these for all sports, but I think rugby is most certainly one which would. I think South African punters would really appreciate that, and football's a great start. But I think if we can kind of roll these out, these builder bets out over a number of sports, I think that would be a great addition to many sports books. Yeah,
and I think they can work some really exotic markets into that. Although I do see that there are some really cool markets that they've included. And as you said, you can put pretty much any market from an event into your bet builder. But talking about bets, we also want to chat about some interesting and kind of unique bets that you can take with some South African bookmakers. And I have a very cool bet that you can take at Sportingbet. I've got it up on screen here, where you can actually back a player to have a certain amount of shots on target. And I'm just looking at the Leipzig versus PSG match here, and you can have Mbappe and Neymar to both have over 1.5 shots on target. This is regular time, so this is for the entire match. And your answer there is only yes. You only have one bet to choose from. And you're getting 2.5 there, which I think is pretty decent for Mbappe and Neymar to each have at least 2 shots on target. Now remember, these don't need to be goals. They just have to be shots on target. So I thought that was quite a cool market. Anyone that you would like to highlight, Simon?
Yeah, well, kind of related to that, I agree. I think that's a great market. Kind of related to that, and something which is available at more and more bookmakers these days is the corner handicap. So corner handicap works like a goal handicap, but it's obviously on corners. So I think this is an especially useful market for betting on teams that are aggressive, but they can be kind of a little bit wayward in front of goal. So they teams who are more aggressive are bound to get more corners on their opponents, but not always more goals. So taking a team on a corner handicap, I think, is a useful way to kind of get some skin in a game where you're not certain the team will score goals, but corners look very likely.
Yeah, I like betting on corners as well, especially when one team is just smashing the other side. Possession wise, if there's camping in their box, it might be 0-0, but they're the one with the ball, and the team with the bulk of the possession is usually going to have the most corners. So it's a bet that I kind of like to play in play, because I think you get a lot more value out of following the lines and following the score in that sense. So I have made some money off corner bets in the past. The same with cards. I find them kind of similar, although cards I think are a lot more temperamental than betting on corners, because a corner is a corner. If the ball goes over the line, it's a corner. A card is open to interpretation most of the time, if in the sense that a human is judging that.
Of course, and the other thing with cards as well is that you're relying on two humans, right? Because there's also the ref. Some refs are more likely to give cards than others. It shouldn't really be like that, but I think it still is. Another market I really like, which I know it's available at bet.co.za. I'm not sure if it's available at any other bookies, but it's called a power bet, which is a bet on a goal to be scored within a certain period of time. So the later the goal, the bigger your payout will be. So you basically place the bet and you watch your winnings increase as time ticks on. And as long as that goal is scored before the 90th minute, you get the payout. So I thought that's quite an interesting market. And of course, that's something which you would have to take in play too.
So how does that work exactly? Let's say I put 10 Rand on Manchester United, on corners or whatever the market would be, or goals to score in the next. Sorry, on goals it would be to score. Let's say between 70 and 80 minutes. If I place the bet at like 69, 70 minutes, is it going to be valid for 70 to 80 minutes, or is it for the rest of the match?
No, it's for within the period of your choice. So I think as long as the closer it gets to the end, the higher your payout will be.
Okay, so is it kind of like cash out? So I'm just trying to picture this in my mind. Is it like a cash out bar that sort of starts low and then moves up closer to the result? Is it something like that?
That's right. That's right, Rob.
That's quite an interesting way of doing it. I'd almost have it in the inverse, where I would start out with, let's say, the 10 Rand, and then after 1 minute that goes down to 9 Rand. After the next minute it goes down to 8 Rand. All the way through the period.
Yeah, that would be another way to do it.
However, if the guy scores, you get a full payout, rather than getting a reduced payout. So I'm not sure. I need to actually have a closer look at that market. It sounds very cool. Sounds something that needs my eyes to have a look at, so my brain can understand.
Gotcha.
Then another market I want to highlight, and this is one that guys should really stay away from. And I'm sure Simon will know this as soon as I mention it, but it is who will win the rest of the match. I'm sure you're well familiar with this market, Simon.
I am. This bet is essentially resets the score to 0, and then includes only goals scored thereafter to determine your bet is a winner. So it's also a bet that you take in play. Say Manchester United's playing Arsenal and the score is 1-0 to Manchester United. When you place the who wins the rest of the bet match, when you place the who wins the rest of the match bet, the score will then be reset to 0. So then whoever wins, so if it's 1-0 Manchester United, it'll be set to 0. And then if Arsenal scores a goal after that and then the match ends, it'll actually be Arsenal 1-0 as opposed to Manchester United 1-0.
Exactly.
So it can get quite confusing for punters, and there's often a lot of queries around this bet and how it's resulted, because I think a lot of people bet on it without quite understanding it. So
yes, they see the big odds and their eyes go wide and they're like, ooh, easy money.
Right. So yeah, I guess a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking that the score isn't reset, basically, so that if Manchester United is winning and they go on to win the match, their bet wins. But when in reality, they need to basically overcome the 0-0.
It's essentially a handicap, in a way. It's basically a handicap on what the goal is, the score is at the moment. And as you said, lots of guys come in with queries and complaints that their bet's been settled incorrectly. But as you said, they don't realize that when you place the bet, it does reset the score. And I've got Morocco Swallows and Ajax Cape Town up now on Sportingbet at the moment. And Morocco Swallows are leading 1-0 with 67 minutes gone. So there's another 23 minutes left in the game. And the odds on Morocco Swallows to win the rest of the match are 5.25. So your average punter is looking at that and saying, wow, I can get 5.25 on Morocco Swallows who are already 1-0 up. I will take that all day, every day. And that's what happens. And they don't look at the odds of the draw, which is 1.65, or Ajax Cape Town at 3.2. So lots of guys fall into that trap. But even having said all of that, it is a good market to bet on if you know what you're doing and you are keeping a close eye on the game. Once a team starts to dominate it, it might be worth chucking on rest of the match bet on them.
It's a kind of bet you want to really take with a team that just looks like, for instance, it would have been great to take who wins the rest of the match on Bayern in play on Friday, because you could just see they were just going to keep scoring goals. And so, even with the score reset to 0, you could be pretty confident, on the 60th minute or 70th minute that they were still going to win the match. You probably wouldn't have got as good odds because, the game was more high scoring than I'd imagine the Morocco Swallows game would be. But, that's kind of when you want to take a bet like that, when a team is just kind of all over another team and looks like they will overcome a handicap. So, yeah, it's essentially a handicap bet, really. It's just kind of a more fancy way to kind of frame it, I guess. And
just looking at the handicap market on this particular match, the odds are exactly the same on a 1-0 handicap on the sides. I do find it pretty tempting to take something like the Morocco Swallows to win the rest of the match, because they are leading 1-0 and they need to win 2-0. So you basically would be backing Morocco Swallows to win by 2 or more goals there. And I'm just looking at the screen that's up now. I think that would be a pretty decent bet at those odds. But anyway, going back to some other betting options, and one of my favorite bets is both teams to score and overs. I'm sure that's another market that Simon's pretty familiar with.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's, generally when you're looking at a match where you're expecting the goal tally to be high, especially when you've got two defenses which aren't necessarily that resolute. Often when teams get ahead by a few goals, they get a bit leaky at the back too. So you're going to get overs and both teams to score quite often in those instances too. Yeah,
and they're complementary bets. So sure, you can have the overs come in without both teams scoring, but I mean for something like over 2.5, over 3.5, you're usually going to have both teams scoring. If you're going to see that many goals. Obviously there are exceptions to all of this and the odds reflect that, but it's a market that I do fancy quite a bit. Are there any other staple markets that you jump to when looking at a soccer bet that might be a little bit out there, Simon?
No, that's all I had listed here, Rob. I think we've gone over some good ones.
Yeah, some great ones mentioned there. So guys, go check out some of those markets, especially the Mbappe and Neymar. They have different specials for different matches. I've seen Messi up there. I've seen all your big players. I'm not sure if you can request more markets from the bookies. You can try. But I also think the limits on the markets are not going to be as high as some of your other traditional bets. I don't think the bookmakers' appetite for risk on these is going to be too high. But let's move on to some Champions League matches, Simon. We have Leipzig taking on PSG today.
Yeah, that's the first semi-final of the Champions League. It should be a good one. PSG are odds of 7-10 to beat the Germans, which I think looks a little on the short side, but it's still not enough to tempt me into a bet on Leipzig, even on the double chance or draw no bet. The under 2.5 goals that I expected last week didn't come in, but I like it here again. In fact, I'm going to be a bit more bold and actually predict a goalless draw in the first half at odds of 11-4. So that would be 3.75 in decimal odds. I think this game will be a slow burner, and I don't expect many chances for either side in the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, just looking at some of the recent results from both sides, it does look like a win to 0 is catching my eye. But then once again, they are playing these away games at these empty stadiums, and they're basically both sides are away. So it's very difficult for me to look at the other side. So I'll be definitely biased towards PSG in this sense. But I'm just not sure how Leipzig are going to be away from home in the stadium. I don't know if they're going to up the game or they're just going to roll over. But I think PSG is going to win this one quite handily. I don't know how many goals there's going to be in it. I'm not sure about your unders bet, but I think it does look pretty good, and I think I'll be backing PSG on the straight win for this one.
Great, yeah. And then it's the other match tomorrow is Lyon and Bayern Munich. That would be the other semi-final.
Coming in thick and fast, eh? Really not messing around with the matches.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to get through them. So I think it would be easy to expect there to be a lot less goals in this match. After that would be kind of the what a lot of people would expect after last week. But I think that Bayern, even against a resilient side like Lyon, will score lots of goals again here. I think I actually like the over 3.5 at odds of 10 to 11. And then for a value goal scorer bet, also like the chance of Thomas Müller to score any time, and that's at odds of 13 to 10. He was really, really good last week, and he's one of those confidence players that's unstoppable when he finds some goal scoring form. So
yeah, he is definitely a confidence player. Yeah, he's a hard worker, but when his confidence hits, then then all bets off.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the game, Rob?
It's hard for me to look at this game from a kind of objective view, considering the 8-2 beating that they dished out to Barca the week before. I feel that Lyon are going to be in for not as big a thrashing. I think they're going to tighten up at the back. It's difficult to. I think Bayern are going to win, but it's difficult to find too much value outside of that. I'm looking at goals. I did fancy over 2.5 goals, but odds of 1.34 is just not good enough for me. Over 3.5 I like, but that's a bit more risky. The one that you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
So I'm really caught up on this game. There's no value on Bayern backing them on the win at 1.23 or something like that. So
yeah.
So I'm going to give this one a miss.
The reason I like the over 3.5 goals is I do actually expect Lyon to score a goal in this match, and I really can't see Bayern scoring less than 3. So if we're gonna, if we think Bayern will score 3 and Lyon will score at least 1, there's our 4 goals at odds of 10 to 11. So I think that's decent. And I agree with you. 2.5 over 2.5 is just way too short. So the over 3.5 I think is a good shot. I was expecting about 3 to 4 on over 3.5. So I think 10 to 11 is actually some decent value on the overs.
And if you're looking for a little more value there, Simon, there's Bayern to win and over 4.5 goals, which is more goals than you want. Well, than you need for your previous bet, but you're getting 3.1. So what's that? 2 to 1 basically, just over 2 to 1, which is pretty tasty. I think I might have a stab on that just because it looks like a little bit of value.
Yeah, it should be a good one. It should be a very good semi-final, this, Rob.
So we're going to have a semi-final between Bayern and PSG?
It looks like it. I mean,
a final, rather. Oh, sorry, what am I saying?
A final. Absolutely. And I just looked at the outright odds for Bayern Munich to lift the trophy, and I said 2 to 5.
2 to 5. Wow.
Yeah.
No value there. I'm sorry.
That was at the one book I looked at. There might be bigger prices around, but so even if PSG thrash Leipzig, you're going to see a very short price on Bayern Munich in the final, assuming they beat Lyon, which they should.
I would give PSG a shot in that final before they've played their game against Leipzig. I wouldn't completely write them off. Obviously, there's 2 more games to go, so anything can happen.
Sure.
But look at the Springboks, for example, as a cautionary tale of writing a team off against a really strong team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they should have been smashed by the Poms, but even after they destroyed New Zealand, we still managed to completely destroy them. So there's a cautionary tale for guys looking at teams after big wins. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Simon, is there anything else you'd like to add before we end off the podcast?
Not at all, Rob. Maybe we can chat a bit about what we plan to do next week, if you have anything on the agenda yet.
No, we have nothing on the agenda. We're going to have our next podcast, I think, in 2 weeks' time. Maybe we'll see. We'll see after the Champions League final. I think we might have something up for that. But we will be chatting, I think, about some other topics, probably going back to a little bit more of the casino and bet game side for an episode or two, and then back to sports. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Simon, thanks for coming in again.
Thanks, Rob. It was great. Good to chat to you.
Good having you as always. And guys, we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good one. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. And don't forget to visit our site, Facebook and Twitter pages. Let's go make some money.